Let's get to our top story this morning. Two new polls find President Joe Biden narrowly leading Donald Trump in November's general election race. In the first, from ABC News and Ipsos, Biden is up 4 points, 49 to 45% among likely voters nationwide. In the second, from NPR, PBS, and Marist College, Biden holds a 5-point lead, 52 to 47% among registered voters who say they definitely plan to vote in November. That is still within the margin of error. What do you make at this point? It's kind of hard to take any poll that seriously, but what is it telling you in terms of the state of the race?
Yeah.
And also the fact that it's tight, given the options.
Well, I mean, we're so many months out. So these polls in May just don't make a huge difference. But I will tell you, as a candidate myself, when I was a candidate myself, I would take a poll from time to time. You just want to see, you want to test the temperature. You want to, and again, as I've always said, you want to look at trends. We saw a couple months ago Joe Biden far behind in a lot of polls. These show something quite different, that he's now moving ahead of Donald Trump again among likely voters. You know, polls of adults, even polls of registered voters, this far out. You might as well be watching Housewives of Beverly Hills, which I hear is really heated up quickly this season. But something as you dig into these polls, I think makes this election actually unique, at least in America. But I think it's the way we're going. Ed Luce, I want to go to you really quickly. The Financial Times, I think a couple months ago, talked about how the approval ratings of candidates, presidential candidates, incumbents, just collapsed. And so if you're trying to predict how an election's going to turn out, don't look at that, because you'll have as much luck as they did in France when they were seeing Macron in the low 30s and then ending up winning, he got 57, 58% of the vote. We see that here, especially the ABC poll, where Joe Biden's approval ratings are as low as they've been. And on issues, Donald Trump doing better than the president in many areas. But then you start asking about who has better character, who's a better person, who understands people like you, and those sort of questions. And Joe Biden wins. And some of those, he wins by a great deal. And so those approval ratings, again, just as the Financial Times had reported several months ago, low approval ratings, and yet he still prevails, especially against a candidate like Donald Trump. Is that just where we are now because of social media and everything else? You're just going to have presidential incumbents with low approval ratings that may end up like Macron winning comfortably.
Yeah, I think that's well put, Joe. I mean, the governments all around the democratic world have low approval ratings. Relative to most of the rest of the West, other democracies, America is the fastest growing economy, is doing far better, in fact, than countries across the Atlantic. And yet Biden's ratings are as low as they are there. So there is a general just anti-incumbency feeling across the democratic world. A good economy doesn't seem to make that much difference. But we're not really at the choice stage where most voters are focusing like we do obsessionally here in the Beltway. And I think, therefore, once we do get those polls, I've always had, after Labor Day, I've always had the hunch that this is going to be a referendum on Trump, not on Biden.
Right.
Because Trump will make it a referendum on Trump. He just can't help himself. So you might think I'm being a bit Panglossian, but I think ultimately Biden's got the edge here. I hope
right.
I'm not going to live to regret those words.
Right. Well, while you were talking, I actually wrote a note to Mika. I said, I fear Ed is being a bit Panglossian.
I know.
And I think
it's a good word for Monday morning.
It's so weird. We almost said the same thing to each other.
We did. It's really strange. We're kind of
it's like we finished each other's sentences.
But a great point, though. John, it does. It's beautiful. And John Meacham, I think Ed is so right. 2016, we look back, that was not about Donald Trump, actually. That was about Hillary Clinton. It was a referendum on the Clintons, on the Bushes, on the people who had run the country since 1980. And then 2020, obviously a referendum on Donald Trump. And I just, with all that he's saying, the fact that he has to say something shocking and new every day just to sort of amp up his base, 2024 will also be, at the end of the day, a referendum on Donald Trump.
Well, that makes it a referendum on the battle for our better angels, which is not Panglossian. I think that's a discernible truth. And these darker instincts, these authoritarian instincts that the former president is articulating. He's saying it all. So for those of us who believe that this is about democracy, democratic norms, a constitution that, for all of its imperfections, continues to enable us to try to create a more perfect union, all of which shouldn't necessarily be on the ballot, right? I mean, we're voting on a role of the state in the marketplace. We're voting perhaps on the role of how we project force in the world. Those are the ordinary political choices. This is not that. This is about, do you believe in a we the people, or do you believe in I am your retribution? And so, yes, it's a referendum on Trump, but presidential politics, well, not but, and presidential politics is a choice. It's a binary choice. Although, and I don't know if this polling shows this, how the third-party candidates are doing is going to matter enormously. And so, I believe 49-45. That makes some sense to me. But when you introduce the other possibilities here, who does that hurt is a really important question. And as you said, really in about 7 or 8 states.
Yeah, and in this poll, at least in the ABC poll, even with all the other candidates introduced, Joe Biden still beats Donald Trump. It is, though, still in the range of the margin of error. But, Jonathan Lemire, I just wanted to follow up on what Ed Lieu said offhandedly about the American economy being superior to all other economies across the globe. It's not even close. As the Wall Street Journal said, the United States is the envy of the world at the end of the year. One of its, the editor emeritus of the opinion page said the great winner of 2023 was the American economy. The loser, China's economy. You look at all the numbers, and we can pick through the numbers, say, oh, it's a little too. We've been complaining for the past year that the economy is too strong, that it's too hot, that it's pushing up inflation because it's so strong. But, people across the world are looking at our economy and post-COVID and wondering how in the world we did it because it is so superior to other economies, both our friends and our enemies.
No question. America's post-pandemic economy, the envy of the world. Some signs made at the end of last week that perhaps some of that heat was cooling off, which might allow the Fed to tweak interest rates. Unclear, though, whether that will happen between now and the November election. And let's be clear here. National polls only mean so much, though. Joe, I agree. The trend lines have been pro-Biden in recent weeks, except for that one outlier from CNN, maybe about a week back, which had Trump up 5 or 6. Most seem to be going Biden's direction now. But as we well know, this is not a campaign that's going to be run in a national election. It's about the battleground states. Those swing states polls, very close. Trump up in more than Biden, but virtually every state within the margin of error. We heard over the weekend from some Republicans who think that Minnesota and Virginia could be in play. Consider me highly doubtful of that, particularly Virginia. Trump was close to Minnesota before, though. But we should note he actually came close to Minnesota previously. But David Ignatius, we know the Biden team. There's a couple pickups they're looking at too. North Carolina first and foremost. They feel good about where they are there. Florida more of a reach, but at the very least, they think they'll force the Republicans to spend some resources. I know you had a conversation with some senior Biden folks over the weekend. Give us their insights as to where they think the race stands.
So, John, the interesting thing about my conversations with these Biden campaign officials is that their own polling shows that a lot of people who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 aren't convinced yet that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee. And once they become convinced of it, it happens. He is the candidate. There's more of a chance of what we've all been talking about, which is that this election is not a referendum on Joe Biden with all of his weaknesses and gaffes. It's a referendum on the person who was president for 4 years, Donald Trump. And you remind people systematically what that was like. You bring back all the memories that people have. Let's not forget that in 2022, when the Republicans thought they'd have a red wave, they didn't. Why? Because people look back at the Trump years with a lot of distaste. So I think that's basically their idea. One interesting thing, Jonathan, is that we think that with Trump tied down in court in New York, scowling at everybody, looking like he's miserable, that's probably good for the campaign for Biden. But actually, the Biden people, I think, would rather have him out in the country saying things that then get him in trouble. The Time magazine interview is a perfect example. But they feel like every time he's out there on the loose, he says something that reminds people this is how he would govern. And they think that's really the best thing they've got going.
Yeah, and
I think he's done that in his Time magazine interview.
But David's so right.
Nothing like seeing it.
And the campaign's so right. The people that are the professionals, Donald Trump has professionals running his campaign. And for them, less is more. The less Donald Trump's out on the campaign trail, the less he's saying crazy things, the more they can say, oh, look back and look back at how great things were in 2019, 2018. That's what they want to do. And pretend that this explosive volcanic side of Donald Trump doesn't exist. So it is so interesting when you hear people saying, oh, this Biden that wants him in court. No, Joe Biden and the campaign team would love him at rallies every night, again, because he says just crazy things. He loses his train of thought. Sometimes he looks like a doddering old man, they say. Mm-hmm. And we could show the clips, but in court, all he has to do, he can sleep. He can do whatever he's doing.
Well, salacious, hideous things are being, proposed about his activity. I mean,
right.
I don't know. I think it's a balance. We'll see how it. I've heard this many times that they'd rather have him out there. I'm not sure.
But then he walks out and he has, he'll
his
talk.
Little moment.
He'll talk for 30 seconds, and they can contain that. That's very easy to contain, and then he can just play victim the rest of the time.